said that, okay, finally this is not going to give us something better in complexity, more than the linear search, because as we discussed, we need to, in the worst case, search all 4 quadrants, right? And therefore our complexity will turn out to be similar to linear search. Okay, so if we have to take advantage of uh, that this is sorted, somewhere we have to ensure that we need to reduce at least 1 quadrant at a time, right? Or at least 1 quadrant, or if we have to go in this particular divide and conquer manner, right? So let's see if we can do that, right? So that's what we are going to discuss today. All right. So one important point that we learned from last time is that if uh, the number is in Q1, right? For example, the left top corner, then we know that it is definitely smaller than the entry ij, which is highlighted in light yellow. So if a number is in Q1, it is guaranteed that it is less than ij, assuming unique numbers. However, a number at ij, a number which is smaller than ij need not be in Q1. Right? So the opposite is not true. So if a number is in Q1, it is guaranteed that it is less than ij. But a number which is less than ij need not always be in Q1. It could be in Q2, it could be in Q4, right? It is guaranteed that it is not going to be in Q3, right? So that is the only thing we know, right? So this point should be understood. It's only one way that we are supporting this claim. And that's the reason the else part becomes a little difficult. The if part is okay. Any questions so far on this one? Okay, so we'll try to devise such an algorithm for our divide and conquer technique. So for this, I am going to make use of some elements like y and z in my algorithm. So what I do is that we use the corner points of Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 to decide which quadrant to search for, right? So what I do is that if the number is greater than y and greater than z, right? If the number is greater than y and greater than z, can I say that it is in Q3? Any suggestions? Okay, Sai Charan says yes, Salman Aslam says yes, Kashibaltla says yes. Okay, so if a number is greater than y, because we are talking about everything is sorted top to bottom, then it has to be below y, right? So that is okay. But if it is greater than z also, then it has to be on the right hand side of z's axis, because it is sorted left to right also, and therefore it has to be in Q3, that is the top below, bottom right corner, bottom right quadrant. Otherwise, I say that it is in Q1, Q2, Q4, right? So this is my algorithm. And what will be the complexity of such an algorithm? Well, I can find it out. For example, T of Mn, in the worst case, I am going to search 3 quadrants instead of 4 as last time. So therefore, I am going to say that 3 times the complexity of 1 quadrant, m by 2 and n by 2 are the 2 dimensions, so that we get a smaller one. And then per quadrant, I am going to search a constant number of elements. So I get whatever is the minimum of Mn raised to 1.54. Where is this 1.54 coming into picture? Log 3 to the base 2. That's a good observation, Kashi Butler. So this is log 3 to the base 2, because we are talking about every time searching in 3 quadrants at a time, right? In the worst case, right? So this is my algorithm, and I get the complexity which is better than the linear search, right? Any suggestions, any questions on this one? Okay, so there are no questions, looks like, and that does mean that you guys are not paying attention, right? So whatever I said, that is a wrong algorithm, right? We just now said that if the number is greater than y and greater than z, then we can guarantee that it is in Q3. But if it is not, then we cannot guarantee that it is in Q1, Q2, Q4. Right? That was our observation on the last slide. In fact, that's what we discussed last time also. So this is not a correct algorithm. This is going to give you a wrong argument, because if a number is, let's say, less than y and greater than z, less than y and greater than z, it can still be in Q2. Oh, sorry, it can still be in Q3. And therefore, we will be forced to search in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 even for this. Right? It is same as probably the previous algorithm, just that I have changed the indices from I0 and 0j to the values y and z. So therefore, this is not the correct algorithm. So we will go to the algorithm that was suggested to us last time of the elimination. So we are going to eliminate at least one row or one column at a time. But before I move there, any questions? Okay. To get your attention back, I might have to conduct a surprise quiz. Okay, only because it's a Friday, you need not be so much defocused, right? Concentrate. Okay, so what is this algorithm? We said that we are going to eliminate at least one row or at least one column depending upon the values at a particular corner. Right? And we said that for easy implementation, it becomes, it becomes kind of easier for us if we start from Q2 end or Q4 end rather than Q1 and Q3 ends, because otherwise, that way we will always have a rectangle to work with, and therefore we can go on removing a column or a row easily. But you can as well do it from Q1, Q3, just that you might have to keep track of multiple quadrants, multiple rectangles. All right, so what is this? So let's consider this element E. I am taking the example of Q2's end, which is 0th row and n minus 1th element. So my algorithm is, if the key is same as E, that is the value that I am searching for is same as E, I found the element, my algorithm terminates. Otherwise, there are two options. One is the key is less than E or key is greater than E. What can you do when key is less than E? Please think for a moment yourself for a few seconds. What happens? What can you eliminate when key is less than E? Okay, Sai Charan says, can you explain how we got order of minimum of mn raised to 1.54? So this is going to be 3t m by 2 n by 2, then it's going to be 3 square t of m by 2 square comma n by 2 square, and how far you can go below is essentially you will hit either the m's row or the n's column. So because after that you get just a simple array or a simple column, a simple row or simple column, and that you can apply our binary search. But because of this, the 3 to the power k after k steps is going to make m by 2 to the power k or n by 2 to the power k as equal to 1, and therefore 3 to the power k, which is going to come from this part, 3 to the power k is going to be same as minimum of m upon 2 to the m upon 2 to the power k or n upon 2 to the power k is going to become 1. Right? So minimum of that is going to become 1 because we are every time halving these two. So if m is larger, then n by 2 to the power k will reach 1 first. And therefore, we can say that, assuming in this case that let's say n is smaller, and therefore I'll reach n upon 2 to the power k equal to 1, and therefore k is equal to log n to the base 2. So 3 to the power log n to the base 2 is going to become essentially k is equal to 3 to the power log n, the first part of t of mn is going to be 3 to the power log n to the base 2, which if you flip, you will be able to say that it is going to be log of 3 to the base 2, right? And I mean the minimum of m and n is going to become n, so this will become n to the power 1 up log 3 to the base 2, and therefore it will become log 3 to the base 2 is 1.54. So you just follow the same steps that we had done. It's just that 3 to the power log n to the base 2, we can flip it as n to the power log 3 to the base 2. Right? So you can as well convert it. For example, log n to the base 2 is same as log n to the base 3 divided by log 3 to the base log n to the base 2 divided by log 3 to the base 2. Right? So using that formula, we'll be able to convert this to the order of whichever reaches minimum. So n could reach minimum, n could reach n by 2 to the power k will reach 1, or n by 2 to the power k will reach 1, whichever is the minimum that will reach. If it helps, what you could do is you can consider for now that m and n are the same, so that you will reach it in whatever k steps 2 to the power k will come and so on. Right? So that you will get exactly in the same manner as we had done earlier. Okay. Okay, there are large number of search in the same row, column -1, last column can eliminate the column n -1, only column eliminated, key less than eliminate n -1 columns greater than equal to e can be eliminated. Okay, eliminate column n -1, right? E less than e, eliminate n -1th column, key greater than e, eliminate 0th row. Okay, column -1 if a of row column greater than key, else row -1, eliminate current row. Okay, eliminate the row for e less than key. Are we only assuming row wise sorted here? No, we are not assuming row wise sorted, Sunny. It's sorted in both ways, both row and column, and that's the reason why we are able to eliminate either the row or the column, because we are at the end of the row as well as the start of the column. We'll be able to say that if key is less than e, right, it can be in the same row, right, plus it can be in the row below also, but it is guaranteed that it cannot be in the same column because the key is less than e. So e is the smallest in this column, and therefore if key is less than e, I can eliminate this column. Right? So that is what all of you have also suggested. So it is definitely sorted column wise also. So if I can remove that column, then what does that mean? That I am left with the same number of rows but one column less. Right? So with one comparison, or constant number of comparisons, let's put it that way. If constant number of comparisons, in this case I might compare key equals e, which is the statement on the screen, as well as key less than e. So there might be two comparisons which I might be doing, but constant number of comparisons I am able to eliminate one column. Right? Similarly, if e is less than key or key is greater than e, if key that I am searching is greater than e, since the row is sorted, it cannot be in that row. That key cannot be in that row because it is sorted, and key is supposed to be greater than e. Therefore, but it can be in this column, e's column, or it could be in other columns. I mean, it could be in other places in this matrix. So what we could do is to eliminate the row if key is greater than. And I am removing only one row or one column at a time, but I am definitely removing at least, I am definitely removing one row or one column in every iteration. That is what is the progress guarantee that we are getting. That is what I am mentioning here. And once you follow this, essentially you are left with either m minus 1 n matrix or m minus 1 matrix, right? So after the first iteration, and then you go on reducing, you go on repeating this, again consider the corner element, whichever it is, but it is guaranteed that you will not compare E again, right? You will go to the next E, which might be here, or you will go to next E, which might be here, because you have eliminated either the row or the column. So this will give us some way of removing, eliminating certain columns and rows. What will be the complexity of such an algorithm? Okay, Aniruddha says m plus n, Sunil Kumar says m plus n, Rupu says m plus n. So why is that? I mean, why is m plus n coming into picture? And by the time you think about it, I'll check Mayank's question. If key is less than E, why it cannot be in the same column? Because the column is sorted, so all the elements are going to be above E in that column. So it is guaranteed that it will not be in the same column. No, if the key is less than, whatever we are searching, if it is less than E, it cannot be in that column, right? So think about E to be, let's say, 50, and I am searching for an element which is 24. Can 24 appear in the column which is starting with 50? Right? So all the numbers in that column are going to be 50, 52, 55, 60, 100, 1000, whatever, but it cannot be lower than 50, and therefore we can eliminate that column. In the same manner, we can eliminate the row. Does that seem reasonable?
Sir, but it can be also in the above 50 in the same row.
No, in the same row, that is the...
No, sorry, in the same column, above 50.
But our search key is less than 50, that is the thing. So I am searching for 24, and if E equal to 50, can you eliminate that column? Can 24 be present in that column?
No, sir. Yeah.
So therefore we can eliminate. Okay, good. Okay, so there are suggestions on why it is m plus n. Worst case, other corner. Okay. Sai Charan says order n or order m.
No, I corrected that.
Okay, fine. Okay, yeah. So as you can see that, yeah, this can also come up as in your mind, that the complexity might be whatever is the minimum of or maximum of order m and order n, right? So that is not correct, because we might be making, so for example, in the worst case, you can go all the way from here to here. This E might move like this, and then this particular algorithm might have to go deeper and deeper and deeper like this, right? So this is the worst case. Or the other way, I mean, you can go from here like this, searching and eliminating rows, and then you reach this. And as an adversary, I can create such an matrix for you after knowing your algorithm, and therefore you might require all the way going over the column and then all the way going over the rows, and therefore you will require not minimum of or maximum of mn, but you will require m plus n if this is your algorithm. But you can probably improve upon it by saying that I am going to go over let's say one column or the row, and as soon as I reach the such that I have only a column left or only the row left, at that time I am going to do binary search, right? So therefore it will become let's say, yeah, but I think you can still, yeah, you can still create, an adversary can still create a problem, because then I'll create let me just, so I might do something like this, that from E I'm going to go here, and then I might have to go here, then here, then here, then like that. Yeah, but that will still reach one column. In minimum of m and n steps, and then I can apply possibly binary search. Yeah, so seems that it might be possible, right? So then you can apply a binary search. So it will be minimum of mn plus log of maximum of mn, right? So that is another possibility that will change the algorithm little bit. The n case might differ. Yeah, so that optimization is possible. Okay, good. But for as far as this algorithm is concerned, we are going to require m plus n algorithm. Worst case, it can be at Q4 when starting from Q2. Yes, that is correct, and therefore you might require m plus n steps to reach there. That is correct. If key is less than e, it cannot be in that column, but can be in the next row, which are in Q1 and Q2. Yes. So we are not now looking at the quadrants at all. We are just looking at the corner element, just that the corner element I said is at Q2 or Q4. And from there, we are not able to remove the quadrants. We are just able to remove a row or a column. So m plus n, worst case Q4 corner. Sai Charan has corrected. Because says m plus n, Surya Narayan says worst case. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a doubt regarding this order of m plus n. So in
Sure.
general, we have expressions like this. Can we not say that order of m plus n is order of max of mn?
Yes, that you can do, no problem.
Oh, okay. So that part is, and anyway, we are
Yes.
going to call it linear only. Linear.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can call it linear only. Yes, so you can have. I mean, if you are aware that, or even if you are not aware, you can always convert it into max of m. Yes, that is possible. No problem.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thanks.
Okay, Chotu says still m plus n in the worst case. Yes. Abhishek Kumar has given hyphen. I didn't understand that. Okay, some code language. All right. Any other questions, concerns here?
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead, Abhishek.
sir, that straight line you are drawing in the first column, it can also come in the middle and we can reach Q4 at the last step. So our worst case will still be O of m plus n.
Yeah, so if it's a square matrix, then we will require, or almost square matrix, then we'll require 2n steps to essentially reach there, right? And that 2n is same as order n, so it will still be all right, is what I was thinking of. But yeah, you can call it n plus n in that case, which I mean instead of m plus n, and that will be order whatever, order 2n, which will be same as order n. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Sir, in
Yeah.
this matrix, the origin is fixed at E or 0, 0 in Q1. I mean, in
Origin
the
in
diagram.
the-
Origin meaning where the computer starts to count, like each block. I mean, the first block.
You mean the first element in this matrix?
Yes, yes.
That we can assume to be at Q1
At Q1, at the starting block.
as the starting element. 0, 0 will be at Q1.
Yeah.
Right? Does it cause any trouble?
I mean, like, we are going from that origin to E, right? I mean, we are till E. So, we are taking 1, 2, 3, 5 steps. I mean,
No. This is a matrix, right? So that means you have random access of order 1. So I can just access E as 0, I mean ARR of 0 and n minus 1.
okay.
Right? So yeah, we don't need to traverse. We can go directly to E in order 1 step.
Okay. I thought we
Right.
need to traverse each and every block and then we will move to E.
Right. So that will be required if we are representing this as a list, I mean linked list.
Okay.
So this is an array or a matrix. Any element of the matrix you will be able to access in order 1 time. Even if I want X, as long as I know I and J, I'll be able to access it in order one time.
Okay. Okay.
Any other concerns here? Okay, so yeah, like what other corner points I can start with? Definitely Q4. You can also start from Q1, Q3 as we discussed, just that you will have to keep track of multiple quadrants. All right, so since I suggested that I'm going to have some surprise quiz, I'm going to have surprise quiz now, right? But there is a question. Andrea says, could you please repeat the binary search at the end and how it affects order notation? Okay, so what happens is that, okay, let me just go back. Yeah. So since this is non-square matrix, what can happen is that I can reach a particular, if I just follow this is my search, then finally I am going to be left with one row, right? Or if I follow, let's say, this path, then I might be left with one particular column, which is this one, right? If I am left with this particular row or column, then on that, instead of doing a linear search, which is what this algorithm will do, where I'll go on eliminating one row or one column at a time, I can do a binary search because I know that only one row is left, searching for that key in that row, right? And therefore I can require log of m time or log of n time, depending upon whether I reach the final row or final column. The order won't change. Oh, right. Well, the order will slightly change. I mean, you will still be able to say that it is the maximum of these two. That is correct. You will still require the maximum of this. That is correct. I mean, if you take the final complexity, it will still be linear. You are right. It will not, it will change only the second part of the complexity, which is smaller than the maximum of mn. That is correct. So which means that it is going to be requiring, currently we are saying that it is m plus n. In that case, it will be maximum of m plus n plus log of maximum of m plus n. Is that correct? Plus minimum log of minimum of m plus n, right? Because if first part requires the max, then the second part will require min, or vice versa, right? So therefore you will require and that together linear plus logarithmic will become linear, and therefore your complexity will not change as such. I mean, the total final complexity that we said is not going to change, but the expression is definitely going to change. That is correct, Saichal. Andrea, is this okay? No. Any other questions, concerns here? Okay, so I hope within this time all of you have started looking at some of the slides, because I said surprise quiz and so on, but the quiz is not really related to the slides. You have to tell me what is the meaning of this without Googling. Right.
Fear of number 13.
That was fast. Okay, good. So the fear of number 13 is called whatever, triskaidekaphobia, right? Phobia is fear, and then triskaideka or triskaideka is called as 13. Okay, good. Yeah, and Pawan has suggested that today is Friday the 13th. So I'll just explain to you what at some places things are, right? So there is some Santa Anita Park, I think in US or UK somewhere, where there are stall numbers, right? So there are stalls for people to have some of the small shops. So there is 12, there is 14, and in between is called as 12A rather than 13, right? These are the numbers inside the lift, where the floors are numbered like this, and as you can see, 13 is missing, 14 is also missing, 4 is also missing, by the way, and because some people probably feel that it's a bad omen or something like that, right? So they don't prefer, even today, people don't prefer. In fact, long back, when I was of your age, I got to visit our this Mumbai hotel, right, where 26/11 happened, right? What is that name of that hotel? Hotel Taj, right? So there also I found that floor number 13 was missing. Right? At least in the lift, I could see that 13 was not there. So this is not from anywhere outside India. This is definitely happening inside India too. Okay, good. There are some suggestions. Andrea says in Sri Lanka Airways there is no seat number called 13. Interesting. As you can see that some of us are. Sunny says he was born on 13th. Okay, good. So, okay, yeah, I can see some suggestions about the movies and so on. All right. So, what is this paraskevidecatryphobia? That is your second quiz question. Without googling again, okay. Fear of 666, okay. One says. See, you have to divide and conquer, right? Right. So Pranav's guess is correct that it's the fear of, so the first one is fear of 13, the second one is fear of Friday the 13th, which is today, and therefore I thought that I'll just have this surprise quiz, as Akash has also mentioned. All right, so we'll continue our discussion on PDS. Let's do some classwork. So last time we had this question from one of you, that how do you merge arrays? Right, and that I said that we'll do that in our next few set of slides. So what we want to do is you are given two sorted arrays, right? The two arrays are sorted. So think about them as two rows of the matrix that we saw. And now I want to create a third array, which is going to be finally sorted. Okay? So assume that I have the memory available. So one is n length, another is m length. And then I have m plus n length third array which is created, and I'm going to copy these elements somehow. How do you do that, and what will be the complexity? That is our first problem. And then we are going to put a restriction that I don't have the luxury of the third array. What I have is probably the first array itself, or the second array, which is m plus n length. And I would like to do it in situ. In situ meaning in place. I would like to change that array such that it becomes the merged sorted array. Right? So you are given two arrays, but the first one needs to be merged with. Right? So that will be the second part. So let's do this first part. So please take out your copies, or you can write it online. Just write a function which are pass two arrays and their sizes, and the third array, and you are going to merge these two arrays. Please write those steps. Even if you write it algorithmically at this stage, it is okay. And feel free to share your code in the chat box. Alternatively, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. For now, you can assume that all the elements are unique. That should not create a problem, but yeah, for now, you can assume that all the elements are unique. Any questions on this problem statement?
So, do we have a third array or not?
Yeah, in the first part, assume that you have a third array. That is the, so there are two questions here. One is this in a third array. And the second problem, which we'll solve later after we have solved the first one, is then we'll do in situ. So assume that there is a third array and write the code. That is going to be much simpler compared to the in situ. So.
Sir, can you repeat actually? I will not getting proper words.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, let me put it this way. So let's say that I have been given some element, some array like this.
Okay.
And then you are given some other array also like this. Please pardon my drawing skills. And then you are given a large array which can accommodate all of these elements. And what you want to do is, let's say this is 1 and this is 2. And then let's say this is 3. Oops.
Both are sorted, right?
Both
That's
are.
one.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Both are.
You need to sort and put in the logic. Yeah.
So the first two arrays are sorted. Let's say A and B are sorted. Those are of sizes M and N. And then the third array C is going to be, should be finally sorted. Okay. Sure. Yeah, so don't worry if one of your friends is pasting the code in the chat box. Think about it on your own. That is very important. And once you have written it, either you can share or you can refer to the code that is pasted. And feel free to paste your code, not a problem. Even if it is wrong, it's perfectly fine. We are going to learn by making mistakes. And what Visharad has pasted in the chat box, that seems to be the correct code. Unless you are able to find some mistake. Yeah, I think Saicharan, I think the logic mostly should work, except that you might have to be a little careful about array index out of bounds. Because it's possible that J might finish or I might finish, and then the next element might be, let's say, n, A of n or B of m. That might be out of bounds. So that
Yes,
one,
so that one check we can apply. Maybe.
that's true, but doing it in the same loop might turn out to be little. I mean, it's possible. It's just that
So
we
we have a
have to-
complexity of m plus n. Like
Yes, that is correct. Yes, the complexity will be m plus n, but doing it in the same loop will probably be a little tricky. That's one of the reasons why Visharad has pushed. I mean, the first loop goes with the minimum of mn, and then there are iterations which might go over the rest of the element. But yeah, this logic seems to be all right, not a problem. Good. I'll wait for a few more seconds. So whether you are pasting your code here
what
or
did you
not-
mean by pushed? Like
Sorry, what did you mean by?
pushed like
Well, here Visharad is using C++ vectors. So that push is essentially adding it to the end of the array.
okay.
Right. So, I mean, if you maintain, for example, in your case, you are maintaining this index, right? So you can say that A of I or A of J or whatever is the index, maybe C of K, right? So that K is being maintained. So that is essentially where the element will get pushed.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Aniruddha says for in situ, we can take the elements of ARR2 and insert into appropriate place in ARR1. Yes, but there will be more to it, right? Because it's the same array, we will have to move the elements of ARR1. Yes, that is correct. That is one way of doing it. And that will add to the complexity, by the way, right? The moving of the elements will add to the complexity. Then, yeah, those who have finished the first part, they can try thinking about the in situ part. Yashwant Reddy says, while I less than length of array 1 and j less than length of array 2, if ai greater than a2 of j, then 3 dot append a1 of I. Maybe you wanted to say a2 of j there because a1 is larger than a2, so you would like to push the smaller one, unless you are doing it in the opposite order. I plus equal to 1 or j plus, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think the conditions will get flipped, but otherwise the logic seems to be okay. But I think this code alone will not be sufficient. Right? You will require a separate loop to take care of the remaining elements, because this code will come out in the minimum of m and n, minimum of array length 1 and array length 2. So the remaining elements are not yet copied. So that I think we have to take care of.
Yes.
Okay, but otherwise this part seems to be okay with the flip of I and j. That's good. Vishwa says size 1, size 2, size 3, size 1 plus size 2, okay, equal to 0 I less than size 1, C of I equal equal to size 1, and then okay, so you have copied all of them into the same array, and then there is, and then you are sorting it. Is it like that, Vishwa? So you have copied all of these into this. I see. Okay, so that's again a valid algorithm, that you copy the whole array, first array, into the third array, and then after that you append the second array and then sort all of this, right? The good part is that your probably processing is going to become simpler, and you can actually make use of some existing sorting algorithm which might be there in the libraries, but there is a downside to it. What is that, Vishwa?
Time complexity.
Yeah, and why is the time complexity large?
Because of the copying part, I guess, like it's going to be linear.
Copying part is linear, that is okay, order n plus order m, so that will be the copying. But the complexity comes because of the sorting, right? The sorting has to require n log n or m log n, or in this case m plus n log m plus n complexity. But the reason why this is interesting is because this will work, this code will work, Vishwa's idea will work even if the arrays are not sorted, right? So Vishwa's idea of copying first array to third and then appending the second array to the third is going to work irrespective of whether the two arrays are sorted or not, right? But that is also a downside. I mean, exactly the reason that we are not able to take advantage of the ordering of elements in the first and the second.
I didn't read the question properly, sir. Like, I thought it was just two unsorted arrays. Like, I didn't see the sorted part. That's it.
Okay, no problem. The idea is correct then. Just that be a little careful. Okay, so this part is fine. Naimisha says if A of 0 greater than B of 0, so your code will probably come here. Murari says, okay, he has initialized the elements. C of this one, okay. I less than A dot size, J less than B dot size. If AI is less than, yeah. Yashwant Reddy, you have a question?
No, sir.
Okay. A of I less than B of J, then I copy A of I to C. Otherwise, I copy B of J, that is correct. And otherwise, yeah, in the end, I go on copying all the remaining elements from A as well as from B, right? So whichever is remaining. So that seems to be correct. Chotu Kumar has given the algorithm while I less than A of I less than B of I think it should be B of J. That's okay. Error of K equal to error of I, error of J, yes, correct. Yeah, and then the remaining elements which you need to copy, correct. So I suppose you guys are getting a hang of this now. That's good. Final K plus plus equal to first of I plus plus, otherwise second of J plus plus, correct. And then final K plus equal to first of I plus plus or second of I, correct. So that also seems to be correct, Mayank. Yeah, Vishwa has done copy and then sort. Salman says not making use of ordering of the two arrays, correct, that is correct. Abhishek has written the code, merge error of I less than error of J, correct. Error of I. Yes, so this also seems to be correct, and all of you are able to get this understanding that you require two loops at the end of this main while loop, right, main loop, which is going to force you to take care of the remaining elements, right? Okay, so that's good. Tanay has written K less than error size plus error 2 of size. If both of these are small, then you perform this processing, copying in array 3, either error 1 of I, it should be, or error 2 of J. Else if this, then you go pushing, yeah. So you have added it to the main loop itself, the copying of the elements. The number of conditions will increase, but I think complexity wise it's not going to hurt, so I think it's all right. Yeah, this also seems to be okay. Then Dilip has written, Dilip Kumar, I less than A dot size and J less than B dot size, C dot pushback A of I plus plus or B of J plus plus, and then there are two loops, A of I plus plus and B of J plus plus, correct. It seems to be okay. Andrea is asking, find which one of A or B array is larger. Compare the first element of A with B elements until found one greater than A of 0. If found, then put all elements of B to that element into C. Then put A of 0. Repeat at any point, reach end of B. Put all elements of B into C and the remaining elements of A. That is correct. Abhishek is asking how to return an array from function in C++. Right? So in general, you can't return an array, but there are ways in which you can do. For example, you need to pass that C as a parameter, and so since arrays are passed with the address, therefore it will also be visible inside the caller. Alternatively, you can push that array into a structure and return the structure. Since structures are passed by value, you will be able to return that structure, but that is not a very good way. It's more like a hack. So I think the best way is that you pass it as a parameter. There are other ways. For example, you can do a malloc inside the function. So you create the memory on the heap so that m plus n element array you allocate and then return a pointer to that. That is also. Aniruddha says, for institute, do we have m plus n length in both? Yeah, you can assume that. That is okay. You can assume that there is m plus 1 length available. For institute, insert A of I in B wherever it should and push A the following elements by 1. Yes, you will have to push the elements. So that is an important part when you want to do an in situ sort, right? So now let's move to the other part. It's almost time, but I would request you to think about the second one, that you are given this array and both the arrays A and B, only two arrays are given, and both the arrays are of length m plus n. Think about it. Just that the first element, the first array is going to have m elements, the second array is going to have n elements. And now you want to fill, let's say array A with all the m plus n elements from array A and array B. Right? So you have the memory available, just that you have to put the elements in proper order. Right? So please think about it, and we can have a discussion in the next class. Any quick question? Yeah. Any quick questions? All right. So we'll stop here and see you in the next class.